Hello, everybody. All right. Well, welcome to the mic. Oh, oops. Hey, Rick, you're a little late there.
Yeah, I was on time. You just didn't notice me on time to start.
Yeah. Well, you were right on time. You. Yeah, usually you're all right. All right. So, how'd your day go today?
Not too bad. Went over to a friend's place to feed the cats, watch some videos. Um, so yeah, and got back here. Left just to get back here just in time, apparently.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, welcome to the mic stand, everybody. Today is Sunday, September 1st, 2024. I do have something in mind to talk about tonight. So, of course, and we'll get to that in a moment. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we'll try to answer the question to the best of our ability. Now, with
Uh,
all that out of the way, I'm gonna hand it off to Rick for a moment to if he would like see if he'd like to do some intro. You
uh,
got a shtick, right?
yeah. Let's see. Oh, it's something that I'm just about to publish on my channel. That's been waiting to be published for a day or so now, and that's the latest episode that was partly involved in the children. Latest episode of the Silhouette Game.
Hmm.
So yeah, go over to my channel, check that out after we're done here tonight. Uh, Hopefully, you will like the Silhouette Game. It's just simply trying to guess silhouettes of various characters.
And there's the link. There's a
Yeah.
link to his channel if you guys want to go check that
Well,
out.
that's the link exactly to that thing.
Oh, the specific thing you're actually talking about,
Yeah.
right? All right. Let me just. All right. Well, we're just waiting for a few minutes to give people a chance. Hopefully, RJ will join us tonight because I'd like to have him tell everybody about what we were reading the other night.
Yeah.
I can also do that. But aside from that, with of course, well, looks like your cousin Anita's wanting to say hi there, and I think I saw her.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did wave, but she was more just accessing her fridge, which is behind me,
Uh,
since I'm
is
set
that
up
what
in
you
her
call
kitchen.
sandwiches up there in Canada? Break witches?
What we call what?
You said she was getting her break witches. Is that what you
No,
guys call sandwiches up
I
in
said
Canada?
sandwiches.
Huh?
I said I said sandwiches.
Huh?
Or
I thought you said break witches. I thought maybe that
no,
was just
no. Well, I
a
didn't even say. Well,
variation on
actually,
the term that Canada
I did.
used.
I didn't even say sandwiches. I think I was just saying that she came into her kitchen to get something out of her fridge.
Hmm.
you know, she was just waving hi. About she just happened to become. I happened to be set up in her kitchen, so she wants access to her fridge. She's more than entitled to it.
Yeah, well, I get that. That it sounded like you used a word that wasn't as familiar to me. I just thought like maybe it was just Canada's version of something
Version.
here in the states.
Yeah, I'd have to go back over and listen because I'm pretty sure I didn't, but who knows?
All right. Well, as we of course we wait to see if more people come in. Talk a little bit more about what we're doing. And of course, I'll talk a little bit about what we read. If it's only me, and then
Well,
I will still do that. but also with of course here in the States, with this being September now traditional, and Rick, you may remember we did this last year as well. This is the time when when we'd have the new cartoons start premiering, in syndication and on the networks. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I do have something sort of that goes along with that, although it's something to talk about, sort of to go along with that. Although it didn't just start; it started a while ago. I actually just on Friday I watched the whole season of the Cape Crusader. I could give you, if you want later, I could give you some opinions of mine on that based on what I saw. A first-hand thing,
The way you're chuckling, something tells me it wasn't something that overly impressed you. If I had to guess.
Well, didn't overly impress. It was all right. It's not as. I don't think it was quite as bad as what people were trying to make out, but it still wasn't that great. That's just what I'll say in a nutshell.
All right. Wasn't that great, but it wasn't as bad as maybe some people were making it out. It's basically the summation of it.
Yeah.
Right.
As a series in and of itself, it was probably all right. Or it was all right, but with other things attached to it, it made it, seem a little worse, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. We're kind of 7 minutes in, yeah. So how about? I guess I'll talk a little bit since RJ's not here. I'll talk a little bit about what we read Friday night. So of course, we're working our way through comics that went on sale in March of 1940. And on from this past Friday night, we read from books that went on sale from Hillman periodicals. We read through Miracle Comics Volume 1, Issue 3, and Rocket Comics Volume 1, Issue 3. Of course, in the case of Rocket Comics, that was the last issue of that particular book. It was the final issue of that. Final appearance of basically all the characters that were in that book.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so I guess it didn't sell too well. Miracle Comics will come back with its final issue, the 4th issue in January of 41. At this point, it's like Hillman just decided to take a hiatus for the rest of the year, didn't start publishing comics again until early 41 there. So,
oh, wow.
But we did read 3 features. We read Sky Wizard from Miracle Comics, and then we read Rocket Riley and Red Roberts from Rocket Comics. So in the Sky Wizard one, he ended up rescuing the guy he was trying to rescue. Ended up defeating the bad guy. So it was okay. Then in the second story, Rocket Riley, that was the one where they were dealing with evil guy wanted to go back and take over the Earth again, and he got thwarted. And then
of course,
Red Roberts is the electro. So of the 3 stories, of course, RJ liked the 3rd one the best and liked the 2nd one. So the one he liked the most and least were both in the book that was going bye-bye. Oh, yeah. So
intriguing.
Yeah. I know I remember from what he had said. He said that there were some like in terms of some of the pacing of some of the stories, he did not care for too much. But that's all I can remember from it.
Yeah. Well, for you, what were your favorites and least favorite of the 3 stories?
Well, I
Would you
liked all of
agree
them.
with RJ?
All of them. I didn't like as I was reading them. I don't think I really found anything. I really, you know, really super grabbed my attention. Like, you know, too much either way. Um,
Yeah,
they were decent stories. You know, actually, I think one of the things that was kind of amazing, and I think both RJ and I talked about this, was how Red Roberts, the Electro Man, would ride the electric currents of like railways and phone lines. In fact, I know that RJ had actually drawn the comparison to how Ray Palmer would do that,
yeah.
and Red Roberts would do kind of the same thing. Sounds
Oh,
probably
Ray Palmer did it afterwards, so
yeah.
somebody copied their idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, a lot of the people are like um, draw the inspiration from those that came before them, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
nothing
yeah.
wrong with it
Um,
necessarily.
for me, one of the when I was as RJ and I were taught, I did actually also bring up something you had said and how you were noticing that the writing was getting better, and he kind of he more or less generally agreed with you that the writing and the publishing were getting better as time was going on. One of the points I had made, one of the things I think for me, why the Golden Age has such an appeal for me in a way, is because it actually reminds me of a lot of the golden early silver age cartoons. It reminds me of a lot of the cartoons that came out, not just in the golden, from the 30s to the into the 60s, right? So a lot, and as noted, of course, as he noted, you know, a lot of the same artists were a lot of the comic book artists were also working on, television as well, Um, and we have somebody.
Oh, we
Hey,
have
Halder.
Holder. Yeah,
Halder's visiting us from Rex's channel. Hey, Halder, welcome to the show. Hi, Mike. Hi, Cross. Yeah. Um, well, thanks for
thanks for
dropping in.
stopping
If you
by.
haven't already, of course, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. And also, if anything we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Now, with that being said, so yeah, that's all I can really remember or can say about what we pretty much read.
On Friday for the
Yeah,
comic
on Friday.
retrospect.
Yep. So now I'm gonna. So what I'd like to, of course, I'll ask you now, Grant. I think I asked you this last year as well, so I'll ask it again. And for those in the chat, if you want to answer as well, comment, answer as well. Um, so as I mentioned, of course, earlier, we're in September now. So here in and I think up in Canada too, I guess. Here, it's September now, so it's that time of year where,
We start the new TV season.
yeah, where where you get kind of the start of traditionally, anyways, it's the start of the new TV season. As when we were growing up as kids, of course, we used to love as we were getting ready for school and stuff, we loved seeing the new cartoons that were coming to, both syndication and the networks.
Yeah, or the return of our cartoons, especially the ones that we weren't going to see the same episodes of.
Right. Yeah, some
We
of
were going
the
to get new.
seasons. So, um, Rick, do you have any like fond memories from that period of your life that you want to share?
Well, I do remember a lot of getting up Saturday mornings watching cartoons. Of course, there was a few shows during the '80s that came on that in the afternoon, like He Man and Transformers. I think they were the original, some of the originals to do daily live. Well,
Hmm.
I shouldn't say
Yeah.
live, but have new episodes every day. And I like those, of course, but like I know Saturday mornings I couldn't wait for like the Smurfs or
Mm-hmm.
um, whatever. A lot of the other ones I forget exactly what years when certain
Yeah.
cartoons came out. I just I remember watching a lot of them. Saturday mornings like Zorro or Tarzan. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like in the mornings I remember stuff like probably one that you haven't heard of, Rocket Robin Hood. It was a good show. It was made by the same people that made Spider Man. Of course, although Spider Man wasn't new at this point, like I'm talking the '60s Spider Man. I enjoyed watching that each week, or each
Mm-hmm.
day or whatever, whenever they were playing it. Unfortunately, trying to remember back um, 40 plus
Yeah, well,
years
I
ago
mean,
can be hard.
because by the 80s, in terms of some of the you did have shows that were debuting in syndicated fare, like first run syndication, like Transformers, GI Joe, Thundercats, Silverhawks.
Yeah,
Even and we're gonna actually one of the things we're gonna be looking at today, a little bit, is looking at some, you know, maybe I'm not gonna be, looking at some of the programming history of one of the studios that was actually um, quite quite influential throughout much of the TV era.
yeah,
Hanna Barbera. You know,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, and I remember, of course, growing up with a whole bunch of
yeah,
Hanna-Barbera stuff.
because Hanna Barbera was releasing stuff on both. I mean, Hanna Barbera was releasing stuff all over the place. They had Saturday morning stuff. They had syndicated stuff. They even had evening stuff. So we're going to
I
be looking.
remember Scooby Doo. Uh, like there was lots of shows.
Down,
Some I couldn't tell you
Jetson.
when they were. Like I remember Astroware. I remember really wanting to watch that. Gatchaman. Well, actually, there's no here. Battle of the Planets. I remember wanting to watch that. I think those were a couple of my favorites. Although I didn't know they
Well,
were
Gatchaman was
animated.
more of an acquired property. That was something that was, well, depending upon which company, because the Battle of the Planets version, that was done in the 70s. That was done in 78 because
Yeah,
Gatchaman actually originally debuted in Japan back in
yeah,
72.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I call it. I just say Gatchaman because that's what I know it was called originally. Now, of course, when I watched it, it was Battle of the Planets. And
mm.
again, it's something that I didn't realize was quote unquote anime. I didn't realize it came from Japan. I just thought one of the
Well, yeah,
studios here.
there were a number of shows that were like that.
Yeah,
You know, that Voltron, um,
yeah.
you know, a couple that come off the top of my
You
head.
know, like,
You know,
Gummy Bears was another one that I remember
yeah,
wanting to see every week.
from
Like I
Disney.
said,
Yeah,
the, the Smurfs. Although I think this was more in the afternoon. Tailspin, um, Chip, Rescue Rangers, Chippendales Rescue.
Chippendales Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck,
Yeah,
DuckTales,
Tails.
Gargoyle.
Now, some of these might have ran into the '90s. I'm not sure when some of them
Well,
started
the
to
one that
stop.
we were okay, so DuckTales, DuckTales was the first of them that started kind of that movement where Disney developed their own little afternoon block. It started with DuckTales, and then a few others started popping up after, because I think DuckTales initially started in '87, and then you'd start getting others, starting up like they said, Chippendales Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, you know,
Tailspin.
Wellspin, Bonkers. A lot of those were coming at, were coming in, as we were getting into the '90s, and then, of course, Gargoyles I think came even a little later than that.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's another one. Although I don't think I got into Gargoyles when it was new. I think I got into Gargoyles after it had been on the air for a while.
mhm.
But I liked Gargoyles. Like I
They
think
had some good storytelling in that. They had
yeah,
some real good storytelling in that. For a cartoon, that was a very good show because
yeah.
they
Uh,
really did well with the storytelling. It
well,
was
and
really
actually,
engaging.
that would have been probably in the '90s because a lot of people that did the voice acting in that were, of
Mhm.
course, in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
We got another person that I've seen on uh, the Devil Fly Rex's channel. Hey, Edwin, thanks for
Hey,
popping.
Edwin.
Um, let's see. Fantastic show. Well, thank you, Edwin. Actually, you
Well,
know something.
I think you might be more talking about something. Well, either Erex's or one of the shows that we were talking about.
Uh, Hail, Edwin. The Ace Volume 3 is live, and Grant, I'm gonna Edwin. Even though I don't know you as well, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a wrench so you can share your book if you want to like share if you
Share a
want
link to your campaign if you have a campaign on or a site to
yeah
get your book.
just I'll give you a standard mod so you can share your book if you want to like I'll give you a little hand there. And if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and no problem, no problem. Feel free to share your links to your. I know you got a campaign going right now, I believe. Um, so if you feel up to it, go ahead and share it. Um, yeah. So anyway, the Disney did start up.
Yeah, they're only the cartoons based on their TV shows,
Yeah, good
or,
night.
or,
Good night.
or more money.
Good night. Oh, I see how it is. Yeah. Well, I usually will give them to creators a little bit. I'm more inclined to give them to creators so they can promote their books.
Yeah,
Good night, Spoon.
ignore him. He's teasing you.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I think I do need to learn to ignore him a little bit more because he got into something I didn't necessarily want to spend as much time on the other night that we ended up doing. Let's see. So the Ace Volume 3 in demand on Indiegogo till September 30th. Well, yeah, well,
Cool.
we're at the beginning of September here. So if you guys, I see that. If you guys want to go check that out, go see what Edwin has to show us. Good night, Spoon.
Yes.
All right, so
Yes, he has probably. He has. I thought it was Evan Hotep did a lot for creators, not Goodnight Spoon.
yeah. Well, with that being said, so one of the other things, and now we do have some new people in, so I'll pose the same question to you that I posed to Rick a moment ago. Um, do you guys have any fond memories from when you were growing up of stuff you were looking for? We're in September now, so particularly for those of us in the States, I think up in Canada as well, we'd always look for. It's telling me there are two things you had to look forward to as a kid. One was going back to school, which of course most kids, I don't want to go there. I want to still sleep in. I want to still sleep in. Um, you know, look going back to school, and also what new or returning cartoons will we get to watch on Saturday mornings and when we get up in the morning and when we go, when we get home from school.
Or weekday afternoons, maybe weekday
Yeah.
mornings.
Uh-huh. Yep. So if you guys would like to share any of those memories, feel free to at any time. Well, of course.
Or just the shows too could be good too. Goodnight Spoon says Stitch and Rick. About my Evan Hotep thing.
Yeah. So let's see.
How Rick was only 10 years old outside of the house.
All right. So one
Yeah,
of the things
well,
I did
talk
want.
about it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things I did want to talk about, and of course that's an open invitation to you guys if you want to share any memories on anything you looked forward to growing up as well when when the when it came, when September came around. So if you guys have anything, feel free to do so. Let's see, Edwin. it's saying here. Power Rangers was a show I always looked forward to when I was younger. Yeah. Well, I
Okay, well
mean
that gives
that's become a big franchise too.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that gives away his age. He was obviously grew up in the '90s, where we grew up in the '80s, '70s, '80s.
well, I mean, I was 18 in '93. I was like 17, 18 when they were coming out. So you know,
Yeah, but you probably would have been past watching Power Rangers because Power
well, I
Rangers.
did
Well,
watch the first. I did what I kind of watched the first season.
okay, maybe.
Partly because I did have a bit of a crush. I'll admit I had a bit of a crush on Amy Jo Johnson, the girl who
Oh
played
yeah,
the.
same here. But no, no. What I was gonna say is, yeah. Probably you watch it because we're nerds, or geeks, whatever you want to call us. But the thing is, most people stop watching that at like 15, 16, out
Yeah,
something like Power Rangers. But like I still watch cartoons.
yeah. So, anyways, with that being said, so one of the things I was going to go over tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. We're going to look back at the programming history of one of the what some would consider one of the more influential cartoon studios of the TV era.
Would that be
Um,
Filmation?
no, Hanna Barbera actually.
Disney?
Hanna Barbera is what we're talking about. So
Hanna Barbera? Never heard of them.
they're the ones that gave us like Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, all that. So
Are they related to Hannah Montana?
nope. Now Hanna Barbera Productions was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, who formerly worked at MGM. They had actually worked on throughout the 40s and 50s. They had been working for 40s and early 50s. They had been working for MGM, working on like Tom and Jerry cartoons before moving on to start their own company. So Dino Thunder was also very good.
And famous Goodnight Spoon? I think you mean infamous. I tease, I tease. And he's like, Edwin, you ruined it. He's gonna try to convince Rick. It could have been one of the dozens of follow-up things. Yeah, well, Power Rangers started thing and went further through. So
All
Dino
right.
Thunder was pretty good. Yes, it was.
So as I said, we're going to look at some of the programming history of. We're not going to talk about every single show because Hanna Barbera did quite a number of shows, but we're going to talk more about some of the more bigger names, more well known names, obviously. Um, so at the very least, get through this first couple paragraphs here. So this is a list of animated television series made for television films, direct-to-video films, theatrical short subjects, and feature films produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions, also known as HB Enterprise Productions. And many of you probably remember seeing the graphics on TV when you'd watch the cartoons, Hanna-Barbera cartoons. This list
Yeah.
does not include the animated shorts William Hanna and Joseph Barbera produced while employed by MGM, which we noted earlier. Note that some of the shows or new spin-offs of shows may be listed twice. Hanna-Barbera won 8 Emmy Awards. In 2001, Warner Brothers Animation took over function of Hanna-Barbera following the death of William Hanna. For subsequent productions featuring Hanna-Barbera created characters, see Cartoon Network Studios, Warner Brothers Animations. Basically, those are the companies that took over. But anyways, so going back to the 1950s, so the very first cartoon that Hanna-Barbera produced under the Hanna-Barbera production team was the Rough and Ready show, which came out in 1957. It would join the NBC Saturday morning lineup. And so, there were a point in time when some of the cartoons had quote unquote a laugh track. So we'll just take a quick peek here, get kind of an idea of what the Rough and Ready show was. Of course, the Rough and Ready show is an American animated television series produced by Hanna-Barbera. It is so there's Rough the cat and Ready the dog, I think. Um,
Yeah,
it is one of the earliest Saturday morning cartoons, and the first series made by Hanna-Barbera. The series follows the adventures of Ruff, a smart and steadfast cat, and Reddy, a good-natured and brave, but not overly bright dog. Um, it was presented by Screen Gems, a television arm of Columbia Pictures. It premiered in December 1957 and ran for 156 episodes until April 1960, composing of 3 seasons. So basically, 52 episodes a year, basically. So, um, if you're going by the whole idea of one episode a week, you know, but let's see, Hanna-Barbera created the Rough and Ready show for the cartoon studio, then named HB Enterprises. The Buddy theme had previously been explored in their Tom and Jerry theatrical shorts, but unlike Tom and Jerry, Rough and Ready aren't foes, but housemates and best friends. The series is notable as one of the earliest original animated television programs, as well as a pioneer in the use of limited animation technique for television, even though it was not the first production to use it. I mean, there were obviously some cartoons that came out prior to that, but this is probably one of the more But this basically we're highlighting this because this is the very first Hanna-Barbera production that that um, that came forward. Ran from 1957 to 1960 there. So now the second thing we want to, of course, talk about, and this one did eventually grab according to the key here, and won an Emmy nomination. The second show that was produced it was produced for syndication. Rough and Ready was part of the NBC Saturday morning lineup, but this was the first syndicated show that Hanna-Barbera produced, was the Huckleberry Hound show. Initially starting off with Huckleberry Hound, Pixie Dixie and Jinx, Pixie and Dixie and Mr. Jinx, and Yogi Bear for the first couple of years. It ran from 1958 to 1961, and then when Yogi, and we'll talk about that in a moment, when Yogi became so popular that he got his own show and left Huckleberry Hound, they replaced him for the last season with Hokey Wolf. So let's look at some of these notes here that they have on it. Yogi Bear was spun, as I just mentioned, Yogi Bear was spun off into his own series in 1960. Hokey Wolf took its place at that time. Each segment contained episode title cards designed in a manner similar to theatrical shorts. First animated series to win an Emmy Award. So no laugh track here. That's where that little red, where the red X is right there. That tells you if it includes a laugh track or not. So it ran for 68 episodes. So now again, some of these earlier Hanna-Barbera, particularly syndicated shows, would run. They basically run half hour shows, and then you'd have 3 segments of approximately 7 minutes each, just like a theatrical short. And then the third one that started in the 50s, Quick Draw McGraw, another popular character who, of course, he had on his show Quick himself, Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy, and Snooper and Blooper. He, again, same thing. They just didn't have as many. Again, another syndicated show ran from 59 to 61. So these shows actually were done by early 60s. But as we get into the 1960s, of course, the Flintstones is key. Um, Now, of course, as I said, they kind of produced things all over the place. And the
Yeah.
Flintstones, the key thing about the Flintstones here is that, as it says here, it was the first, it ran from 1960 to 66. So a pretty lengthy run for it. Ran for 166 episodes. It premiered on ABC. It did have a laugh track. It was the first primetime series with a 30-minute sitcom format in the history of television. So this was,
And probably the first cartoon too
yeah. Well, the first,
in prime time.
what you might say it. You could argue that it might be the first adult theme, even though they still were pretty clean as compared to today. They weren't anything
Yeah.
like, let's say, The Simpsons or Futurama or anything like that. But it was. I know that one of the comparisons that gets drawn about the Flintstones, about what it was as a cartoon, a
The
lot of
honeymoon.
the comparisons that it's kind of like an animated version of the Honeymooners. For those of you who
Yeah.
may not remember or know what the Honeymooners are, that was a sitcom that starred Jackie Gleason in the. I know Jackie Gleason and Art Carney were two of the people in it. Where the main character is Ralph Cramden, and you'd see his life. He's a local city bus driver, and had the very famous line, "One of these days, Alice, one of these days, pow, to the moon." So, the Flintstones was kind of in that same vein right there. A couple other notes here, but I want to see if there's any notes of interest I need to look at here. Let's see, and I guess you're tending to the chat. Or,
Yeah, I'm just talking back and forth with.
yeah. So anyways, with that, with that, um, so this, now they had a few, and we'll look at some others here too. One of the other things of note on the Flintstones, of course, the first pregnancy in animation history with Wilma Flintstone seen in maternity clothes, that happened on the Flintstones. In fact, I think on one of the previous this date in each histories, we even covered that. The episode where she told Fred she was pregnant and eventually Pebble's first birth. Um, the first animated series to use a laugh track as well. So those are some pretty keen things. And as we talked about before, of course, Yogi Bear was just spun off from, it aired for 33 episodes, just ran for like one season, basically, 1961 to 62. Of course, in that show, you had Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, and Yak-Yo. And even though the show itself only lasted for one season, Yogi Bear would become the franchise player, as it were, for Hanna-Barbera. There,
Yeah, one of the most famous.
as we'll see over time here, and that one was also in syndication.
Yeah, actually, he becomes more famous for anything that's not like the Flintstones or the Jetsons.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, and the Jetsons are probably, and Johnny Quest are probably some of the most famous of the Hanna-Barbera properties. Of course, as mentioned earlier, it was a spin-off of the Huckleberry Hound show. And of course, again, we don't need to repeat. Basically, a lot of these shows, like the Yogi Bear show, the Huckleberry, a lot of them were set up in ways like, at least earlier on here, as if they were presenting, theatrical shorts. Then the sixth cartoon, was Top Cat. Ran for 1 year, ran for 30 episodes, and aired on ABC. And much like the Flintstones, it was a primetime series. Again, another one of these kind of animated shows where you had, for the time, by today's standards, we'd probably consider them pretty tame, but for the time, it was considered more mature material. It wasn't, these were
Yeah.
obviously
Well,
done.
and just the fact that it was a cartoon in prime time, even back then, I think that was a big achievement.
Right. Yeah. And then Hanna-Barbera's first, well, actually no, because the other, um, I don't know if this would be well, no, because obviously Huckleberry Hound would have probably been considered the first package series, but then they had their next package series here, the Hanna Barbera new card.
Did it say package series? Because I don't think it'd be packaged, but I don't think it'd be prime time either. Uh,
What Huckleberry? No, Huckleberry Hound was just set in syndication. They didn't call Huckleberry Hound or Yogi Bear package series, but some
yeah,
would argue that they are because they you know they basically because the idea of a package series is you're
a
putting a
variety
yeah,
show.
a variety into each show. Um, but in this case, or well, maybe they call this specifically more of a package series because instead of like focusing on one character, like in the comics, right?
Yeah,
When you have a like you have something like let's say Flash Comics, right? And you have the main character, and then you have all the supporting, you have the
yeah.
supporting characters, right?
Well,
Kind of
also this is it's called the Hanna Barbera new cartoon series, where the other one was the Huckleberry Hound show. So this is strictly saying that you're going to get a bunch of different characters. Where Huckleberry Hound, yeah, you probably got a few other minor ones, but Huckleberry Hound was the
you
lead
just got a total
lead feature.
new set of characters there.
Yeah.
And again, if anything here, we're doesn't care about school.
He's talking about stuff about old stuff about uh, the whole thing. He's talking about Evan von Scriber, basically
Oh,
fake
Ethan von.
TV.
What about Ethan von Scott? Well, yeah,
Not Ethan, Evan von Scriber, who's also known as fake EVS. He helped a
oh,
lot of the bigger name creators back in the day with not stream so before hangouts, and getting control of that, and I think even doing OBS and all that, he helped a lot of people
hmm,
with that. And
yeah.
Good Night Spoon is trying to cling on to Evan von Scriver's name claim for fame.
Uh,
Although I thought Evan von Scriver became Evan Evan Hotep, and then Evan Hotep disappeared. And then suddenly Goodnight Spoon appeared a few months later.
all right. So, anyways, with this new package series that we're looking at here, so that of course introduced us to such characters as Wally Gator, Touche Turtle, and Dum Dum, and Lippy the Lion, and Har Har. So now in that one,
Hardy
Wally
Har.
Gator was probably the most famous of the three right there. He was in a number of.
Uh, it's hard to say. The turtle one might be just as famous. Touche
Well,
Turtle.
Wally Gator, he was featured, I know, in a number of like Yogi. I think he was featured in Yogi's Ark, for example. Among others.
Yeah.
Touche Turtle and Dum Dum and Lippy the Lion and Hardy Har Har. I get again. I don't think we're as well known. And then
No.
here's the next primetime series and the first iteration of it. And this premiered on ABC back in so it ran from 62 to 63, and then started airing again. In 1985, 87, like 85, 87, it had become more of a syndicate. It's the Jetsons. So primetime series during the 62, 63 run, and then new episodes produced between 1985 87 for a grand total of 75. Of course, I think, again, another one of those that originally started out as a kind of a primetime series, along with, And if you notice too, the Jetsons and the Flintstones run kind of well together because you got, the Flintstones are kind of the family of the past. The Jetsons are the
family of the future.
So yeah, and of course we had the kind of the crossover movie, the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, I believe, back in 1987, I believe. So, and you have more. Of course, you have more. You have more shows coming up throughout the 60s. There's some McGilla Gorilla Show, which gave us McGilla Gorilla, Ricochet Rabbit, Pumpkin Puss. Eventually, and another show that would come up a little later, the Peter Potamus show with Peter Potamus, So Breezy. The two shows which both started in '64, and then Peter Potamus ended in '66. Mandela Gorilla ended in '67. They swapped shows. Ricochet Rabbit and Droop Along went over to Peter Potamus, while Breezy and Sneezy went over to Magilla Gorilla. And in between the two, of course, we get 1 year of Johnny Quest, which premiered on ABC. Now, the other two cartoons, of course, came up in syndication. And then you had another show here, the Adam Ant Secret Squirrel Show, that started up in '65. So, let's see. So, first Hanna-Barbera series created for Saturday morning television. So, this one was technically the one that was, they say here that, so I think Rough and Ready, I know, was on NBC. It might have been like more of the afternoons, though, more weekday afternoons. Adam Ant was Hanna-Barbera's first superhero series. Adam Ant, the Hillbilly Bears, and Precious Pup were later aired as segments on the Adam Ant Show and Secret Squirrel.
Squirrely Giddy
and Winsome Witch were later aired as segments on the Secret Squirrel show. All 6 segments were aired in the Banana Splits Adventure Hour after it went into syndication. So 26 episodes each segment. So basically,
there was saying something about both shows, right? Beyond that stuff that you just read about Banana Splits.
Both shows split off separately during their second season. Well, because the thing was, as a show, it was initially being produced as an hour-long show, I believe. When it first debuted, it was Adam Ant, so they were actually taking up a full hour. So then I think in the second season they decided to split them up with Adam Ant taking on Adam Ant, the Hillbilly Bears, and Precious Pup, and Secret Squirrel taking on Secret Squirrel, Squiddly Diddly, and Winsome Witch.
And hello, Backson.
As I recall, I think she was the answer. She was an answer to Harvey's Wendy Witch, in a way. Cute little witch girl.
The Hillbilly Bears might have even be a cartoon version of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Because they would have been out around then. And we have the Backson in chat saying Oshinoko.
Oshinoko, which is Japanese.
Jeez, I wouldn't have figured that out.
Yeah. Don't know what it is off the top of my head, but
yes, neither do I.
So, as a friendly reminder to you guys, if you guys can help us out by liking and sharing this, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the question the best of our ability. So, with that, we continue on here. And, I'm just briefly going through this stuff. I'm not trying to go into too much detail. I mean, we'll just read up the notes here. That's about it, because there's something significant. And then you had some other ones here, like, and many, again, like a lot of people, another syndicated show, Sinbad Jr. and the Magic Belt. They had a Laurel and Hardy adaptation that went on NBC for a while there. And of course, some of these cartoons came back as part of the world of super adventures in the 80s as well. 1966, 68, you had Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossibles. Frankenstein Jr., you could argue, was kind of Hanna-Barbera's answer to Gigantor or Tetsugen 28. The Impossibles were Hanna-Barbera's first animated TV rock and roll group. 2 years before the Archies, the same year as TTV's The Beagles. Let's see. That
Now, it
ran.
was probably 2 years before the Archies were on TV, but were they thought of in the comics before that? Would be my question. Which I know you can't answer, but
The Impossibles, for those of you who may not remember, they were a rock band who would transform themselves into superheroes. You had Fluid Man, Multi Man, and Coil Man. And they would transform from a band playing instruments into, basically man made of fluid, basically, in a dye suit. Multi Man, who had a shield and could multiply himself. And then Coil Man, who turned himself into a ball and coil of a limbs. That ran on CBS. Another CBS series, of course, Space Ghost and Dino Boy, another well-known, Space Ghost in particular. The Space Cadets in syndication episodes were paired with Young Samson, and there's as Space Cadets and Young Samson. That ran on NBC. Let's see, Abbott and Costello.
Did you miss one just above Abbott and Costello?
What was that?
I think you missed one just above Abbott and Costello.
Well, that wasn't. I didn't say anything. That was an unrealized live action. That was that was basically an We'll Take Manhattan. It was an unrealized pilot. Again, I'm trying to keep things going along here, Rick. So I'm not gonna.
Okay. I didn't know. I just saw you go by something.
Yeah. So, anyways, the Abbott and Costello, which was co-produced in part by RKO Pictures Company, which of course was a company that was linked to Disney. This animated adaptation of Abbott and Costello was utilizing the voice of Bud Abbott. 39 episode, 156 short, meaning that each episode had 4 shorts to it. It ran on syndication. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio on NBC. The Herculoid, Shazam. A lot of these series would show up later in of course, the Fantastic Four series, co-produced with Marvel Comics, as a 1967 to 70 series, based on, of course, the comic book of the same name. Samson and Goliath, which aired at times as Young Samson as well. This was basically about a young boy who would transform into the super strong Samson, and then Goliath, who was initially a dog who would change into a lion. Don't ask me why they did that. I don't know. But as in syndication episode, okay. And then the Banana Splits. Let's see, combined live action anime. The Banana Splits hour was made up of course, the Banana Splits, which was the live action portion of the show. The Arabian Nights, Three Musketeers, Micro Ventures, and Danger Island, which is another live action segment. Combined live action and animated segments. Danger Island was exclusively live action. The Banana Splits was live action. Arabian Night was an animated version of the work of the same name from Middle East literature. Basically, again, a lot of these, and the Banana Split segments did have a laugh track to it, and it aired on NBC. So, The Adventures of Gulliver, based on Gulliver's Travels. New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the first live-action animated series, television history, and one of the most expensive of its time. There are a few that came out before it, though, I think. So, based on Wacky Races, of course, which also led to the spin-offs of um, of the Perils of Penelope Pitstop and Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines, which also had the Magnificent Muttley and Wingdings in it. So, and they were saying that the Wacky Races was originally meant to be a game show, originally developed. So all three of the series ran on CBS Saturday mornings, obviously. Of course, Janet Waldo and Paul Winchell will both lend their voices to these series. Janet Waldo as Penelope Pitstop and Paul Winchell as Dick Daddle. Of course, Paul Winchell would later go on to voice Gargamel and Smurfs. And then you also had Paul Lynde in there as the purple. I don't even remember what his name was, but he was basically the back end of Perils of Penelope. Basically, he was Penelope's evil uncle who was trying to get rid of her to collect her fortune, basically. Had the Chattanooga Cats, with, again, another kind of package-like show with Chattanooga Cat around the world in 60 days. It's the Wolf, and a lot of these series, and then, of course, probably the first Saturday morning animated TV series to use a laugh. So this is the one that was specifically developed for Saturday mornings. This ran from 69 to 78. Of course, a lot of that too, even though I think episode-wise, they really only produce like one or two episodes per one or two seasons of episodes, but they still kept running it.
Yeah.
Syndication. So we go from the 60s. So that's all that came about in the 60s. Now getting, through the 70s here. Another Where's Huddles? Let's see. And of course, as they would, basically you'd see another set like Harlem Globetrotters, CBS Productions, the Laugh Track, and they had a couple of Globetrotter series that they produced. Josie and the Pussycats also was developed as a cartoon. Then, of course, the first spin-off of the Flintstones to premiere on Saturday mornings was the Pebbles and Bam Bam show.
Which was them as teenagers, I believe.
Yeah, right. The Funky Venom, the first series animated in Australia by Hanna-Barbera by API, which they eventually bought. So now you start seeing more and more of the cartoons coming out with laugh tracks, like the ones that actually did make it. Had the Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan, which was an adaptation of the Charlie Chan detective film series. In syndicate, so another first run syndicated series. This one was another one that was kind of more, for its time, more mature. Was Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. It's kind of on an old saying from that time period when kids would get in trouble and the mother would say, "Well, wait till your father gets home; he'll deal with you."
Yeah, I used to watch that in reruns. I don't think I've ever saw every single episode, but I liked it.
Yeah. Well, that's of course the father in there was Tom Bodley of Happy Days fame.
Yeah.
And then now aired in reruns as we had the Flintstones Comedy Hour that debuted in 72, 73, another spin-off, the Bedrock Rockers, it says here, aired in reruns as the Flintstones Comedy Show in 73, 74, and it was, of course, it was technically more of a spin-off of Pebbles and Bam Bam Show. Had, of course, the Roman Holidays, C-Lab 2020. These were, well, I don't know as much about the Roman Holidays, but I think the C-Lab 2020 was more of an adventure series. Another Scooby-Doo, a spin-off of the Scooby-Doo Where Are You series in 72, 74, the new Scooby-Doo movies. This was, of course, the cartoon. The first series to bring weekly celebrity voices to Saturday morning cartoons. Such characters included, of course, the Addams Family, Batman and Robin, Sandy Duncan, the Harlem Globetrotters, Genie from I Dream of Genie, Speed Buggy. I mean, they had them from across the media. From other cartoons to actual real life shows, the sports. It's like this. This of course is years before Scooby Doo and Guess Who, but this is kind of the first one here, the new Scooby Doo movies, and it aired on CBS. Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space, which of course was a spin-off of Josie and the Pussycats, just set again in outer space. Speed Buggy, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Yogi's Gang, which was a crossover series featuring characters from from all the shows we previously mentioned. Yogi's Gang was initially it started it premiered as a movie, Yogi's Ark Lark, and it's the one where the Hanna-Barbera gang, all these different characters would actually get on a flying ark, kind of like Noah's Ark, and and they'd go on adventure. And of course, this is 1973, so this is kind of the early days of the environmental movement. So a lot of the shows were more environmentally themed. Actually, there were a few shows like that at this time. The first Super show, which we'll look at in a moment here, was another one like that, where basically they were always talking about they'd have like little
natural disasters.
It initially ran on ABC because initially it started out as part of the Super Saturday showcase movie, back in 70. That ran that series that ran from 72 to 74. Super Friends, the first of the Super Friends franchise. This was more the hour-long version, the first version. This was the pre Wonder Twins episodes. This was the one with Marvin and Wendy in it. Okay, and much like what we just talked about with Yogi Gang, this is another one. If you've ever seen this show, if you've ever seen the Super Friends, the first of the 73-74 series, they had environmentally they would
themed episodes.
They weren't quite as over the top as like Captain Planet would be later, but like there were episodes like Project Geek and the importance of actually getting up and getting out more, not just sitting at home. Sitting at home, that one was
that I wouldn't say would be about environmentalism. That would just be about activeness, instead of trying to make sure kids aren't sitting on their duff just watching TV. Make sure they're getting up and being active, and that I could see.
There was another episode where some aliens had like totally trashed their planet, and they sent somebody to Earth to scout it to try to basically make it more suitable for theirs, and then the Super Friends had to go back and get them to. So you had Goober and the Ghost Chasers, which was a crossover with the Partridge Family and Chi Private Eye, Genie, and animated, and again they were, much like with comics too. They were doing a lot of, taking a lot of IPs and making cartoon adaptations. Genie was a Screen Gems co-production. Screen Gems, the television arm of Columbia. Had the Addams Family, which Hanna-Barbera did a couple of Addams Family's adaptations. This was the first one, and of course, a lot of these characters you'd also find on, guest starring on Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo mysteries or movies. Anime adaptation of the 1960s sitcom of the same name. Devlin, Partridge Family 2020, which anime adaptation of the final Hanna-Barbera TV series distributed by Screen Gems. So Partridge Family 2200 AD was the final one that was distributed by Screen Gems Columbia Pictures Television.
That's even 180, 175 years, over 170 years from now. Still 2200 AD.
Mm-hmm.
It's Partridge Family really in the future.
Mm-hmm. And you had a bunch like Korg 70,000 BC live action TV series, and you had another like kind of package television deal here with the new Tom and Jerry, Grape Ape, Mumbly Show, Tom and Jerry Show, which basically this they put this all together on ABC. It was set up like an hour and a half type show. Um, had the Tom and
Yeah.
Show, the Great Ape Show, and the Mumbly Cartoon Show. It's co-produced with MGM. Aired as the new Tom and Jerry Grape Ape Show, 1975-76, the Tom and Jerry Grape Ape Mumbly Show, 1976, and the Tom and Jerry Mumbly Show in 1976-77. Of course, part of it was based on the Tom and Jerry theatrical shorts. No laugh track for the Tom and Jerry Show, but there was a laugh track for the Great Ape. Now, if you remember, the Great Ape, the Great Grape Ape was a giant purple colored ape.
I think so. I think
Who,
I vaguely remember it.
who
Obviously,
actually,
Hanna Barbera has had a lot over the years, and some of it I've seen, some of it I haven't, for obvious reasons. Before my time.
yeah. Well, many of these shows have shown up in syndication over the years. So
Yeah,
there's
but
always,
I don't have cable on a regular basis, or
yeah. So,
any of
well,
the.
some and some more on others, right? Obviously, but yeah. So then of course you got well, the Scooby Doo Dynamite Hour, which of course gave us the Scooby Doo show. Now the Scooby Doo show, again, this is another spin-off of Scooby Doo Where Are You? And it had a laugh track around 76 to 77. The Scooby Doo show was the show where they introduced Scooby Dum. You know, the kind of the dim-witted, dim-witted white Dalmatian. That was like
Well, not
Scooby
Dalmatian. Great Dane, you mean?
Great Dane. Yeah, thank you. Dynamite Dog Wonder. That Dynamite Dog Wonder was, basically the mechanical dog who was paired with Blue Falcon. Klugla, Jabberjaw. Now like Jabberjaw, Scooby Doo, Josie and the Pussycats, Devlin, Speed Buggy. These all fall under to what we know of today as those meddling kids segment of cartoons, right? Where
Yeah.
you basically pair possibly a special character, maybe an anthropomorphic character, Goober and the Ghost Chasers, Funky Venom, or some other ones. The idea you pair an anthropomorphic character with a group of kids, and they go out and solve mysteries.
Yeah.
And of course, and the reason that these particular cartoons got the name "Those Meddling Kids" is because of the catchphrase in Scooby Doo. Yeah, I would have got away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. So, yeah. So, and again, if there's anything here about a specific series you guys want to know about or ask about, feel free to do so, and I'll answer the question is to the best of my ability. So, yeah. So anyway, we continue on, of course. Yeah, Flintstones and Friends come up in 77, 78. Here with, again, another package series that includes reruns of Flintstones Comedy Hour, Goober and the Ghost Chaser, Genie, Partridge Family 22. And they did come out with a few of these package series later. Um, this was in syndication. spin-off of the Flintstones, of course. Yogi Jang, all that. Uh, let's see. And then we had Scooby Doo's All Star, that 1977-78, coming out the year after the 1976 Olympics. You had, of course, Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels, Lava Lemons, and reruns of course, a number of Scooby Doo shows and Blue Falcon. So let's see. Aired as Scooby's All Stars 78, 79, and it aired as an hour and a half block on Saturday mornings, I believe. It's on ABC on Saturday mornings. Laugh Olympics is, of course, a crossover among the many different characters. The Hanna-Barbera. In fact, the Laugh Olympics, it was kind of like an Olympics type cartoon in which you had three teams. You had the Scooby Doobies, the Yogi Yahooies, and the Really Rottens. Of course, the Scooby Doobies had a lot of the characters that were associated with Scooby Doo, like some of the those meddling kids. You had, I think, Dynamite and Blue Falcon, and the Teen Angels, and then you had the Yogi Yahooies were all the ones who were like from the '60s, basically, and then the Really Rottens, more of them were more. I think the only previous character was Mumbly in there. A lot of the and you had a variation on Dick Dastardly. But you had the gruesome, and like kind of the more, they were really running the bad guys, basically the guys who were always cheating to win. CB Bears, and of course they started out on NBC in syndication. In syndication, CB Bears aired a half-hour version with Blast Off Buzzard and Impossible. In syndication, Hey King, Hey It's the King, also aired in. So I guess CB Bears was initially maybe an hour program. I guess from the looks of it. It had it had CB Bears, Blast Off, but again, probably one of the lesser known. Hey It's the King, Posse Impossible, Shake, Rattle, and Roll. So let's see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet. So they split the two shows up and separate them out. Hey, It's the King and CB Bears. So Skatebirds, another package show, kind of a live action animated combinated show. You also had in that, aside from the Skatebirds, you had the Robotic Stooges, which were basically the Three Stooges, as robots. Which Wonder Wheels, Woofer and Whimper, Dog Detectives, and the live action of Mystery Island. So, and Rick, you haven't said anything in a while.
Yeah. Oh, just letting you go on about the stuff.
Yeah. I know I'm running on and on and on, only because there's just so much here. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all these cartoons they produced in this, in the time frame. We're just looking at the Hanna-Barbera board, and we're not going to go on to the. But yeah, so, and that we're not even completely out of the '70s yet either.
No.
Yeah, the all spin-off of the Super Friends, the all new Super Friends Hour, which of course was another hour program on, with the Wonder Twins. This would, this would basically have the all new Super Friends Hour. Initially had 3 segments to it. The first segment was usually one of the main Super Friends with a guest. Then you had the Wonder Twins segment, and then you had the whole team. After that, so Hanna-Barbera Happy Hour, which was a live-action primetime variety series. That one didn't last too long. And along with King Feature Syndicates from 78 to 83, for CBS, they produced the all-new Popeye Hour, which had, of course, Popeye's Treasure Hunt, which ran from 78 to 80, Dinky Dog, a Popeye Sports Parade, Prehistoric Popeye, and Private All. So let's see. Spinoff of the Popeye theatrical shorts aired as the Popeye and Olive College comedy show in 1981. So up through 80, the features included Popeye's Treasure Hunt, Dinky Dog, and the Popeye Sports Parade. But then from 81 to 83, when they changed it over comedy show, it was Prehistoric Popeye and Private Olive Oil. Again, kind of their take on Private Benjamin. Now here's another interesting little thing about this particular cartoon. When they were casting for this cartoon, right, when they were doing the voice casting, everybody would have naturally assumed that, of course, they would have brought back all three of the cast members who did the voices for the longest time in the famous shorts, as well as the Popeye cartoons of the 1960s. But of course, Jack Mercer as Popeye, Mae Quetzal as Olive Oil, and Jackson Beck as Bluto. Now, I believe, as I recall, Jack Mercer and Jackson Beck were recast as Popeye and Bluto, respectively, but they felt that, I guess the producers of this particular show, I guess, did not care as much for Mae Quetzal's voice of Olive Oil, so they decided to bring in Marilyn Schaefer to do Olive's voice in this one. The late great Marilyn Schaefer, who had done a number of voices, in the 70s and 80s. There, she also was on, Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, later on the Deke series. Lend her voice to that show as well. Let's see. We also had Yogi Space, another Yogi's crossover spinoff. You had Yogi Space Race, Galaxy Buford and the Galloping Ghost, with the Buford Files and the Galloping Ghost. So, Yogi Space Race was a crossover series featuring, of course, all the characters. Primarily the characters from the Huckleberry Hound show, Yogi Bear show, and so not as many. Galaxy Goofus was a crossover series featuring characters from Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear show. So, and then Challenge of the Super Friends. Now, originally, when this cartoon came out, now Challenge of the Super Friends, that's the first Super Friends cartoon. Well, no, actually, I take that back, because Filmation actually had, but at least in the Hanna-Barbera universe, this is actually the first cartoon where they actually utilized a lot of the actual known villains of the DC characters at the time. You had the Legion of the Challenge of the Super Friends was the Legion of Doom one where you had like Luthor, Cheetah, and all that. It was a spin-off. Now, initially, when this show came on, they also, to make it like a full, I guess, hour and a half or so, they made it as part of the all new Super Friends hour. It was actually initially part of that show, but then also got its own show. And you had the Godzilla Power Hour with Godzilla and Jen of the Jungle, and co-produced with Toho in 78 to 81. Again, the second Globetrotters cartoon I was telling you about, Go-Go Globetrotters, which was combined reruns of the Harlem Globetrotters with Space Ghost, the Herculoids, and CB Bears. The Harlem Globetrotters had the laugh track, but the others did not. Another spin-off of the Flintstones in 79 with the new Fred and Barney show. Fred and Barney meet the Thing. Of course, you had the new Fred and Barney show, and then you had the Thing cartoons combined with them, co-produced by Marvel Comics, of course. Laugh track on the Fred and Barney show. Of course, that's all pretty self-explanatory. Let's see. Here's another unrealized. Some unrealized. And then you had Casper and the Angels, which is based on Casper. co-produced with Harvey Entertainment Company. Casper in the 80s there did become part of the Hanna-Barbera family for a while. There was even some couple of Christmas specials featuring Casper with some of the Hanna-Barbera characters. The new Shmoo, animated adaptation of the Shmoo from Little Abner. The Super Globetrotters, which is another spin-off of the Harlem Globetrotters, in which the Globetrotters get superpowers. And the Scooby,
Jeez, they're just making anything and everything.
yeah, they just kind of throw a whole lot of stuff together. Yeah,
It's just like they got a pot of spaghetti so big it ain't funny.
yeah. Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, the first version of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, spin-off of the Scooby Doo Where Are You? Of course, this was the show that gave us the character Scrappy Doo. And we get another Super Friends spin-off, the world's greatest Super Friends. That one had the opening where they go Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman and Robin, Aquaman, Black Vulcan, Samurai, Apache Chief, El Dorado. Da, 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 da. And that would, of course, the world's greatest Super Friends had its own set of original episodes, but I think it also ran, they also, in syndication, they would run it, in conjunction with like All New Super Friends Hour and all that. And then you had another, spin-off series in which Fred and Barney meet the Shmoo, which they kind of combined the new Fred and Barney show with the new Shmoo. This is the final. Go ahead, Rick.
I just said shmoo you.
Yeah.
Trying to be funny.
Yeah. This is the final Hanna-Barbera Saturday morning cartoon series to have a laugh track, which of course was on the Fred and Barney show. Amigo and Friends was in syndication, co-produced Televisa. This is an animated adaptation of the Mexican movie Cantifias, otherwise Cantifias and Sus Amigos. The first this is a Hanna-Barbera produced English dub. I think this is originally a Hispanic cartoon that aired in syndication. So, and then we had another Super Friends series start up in 1980. It's kind of more of a continuation of the World's Greatest Super Friends, just with more material added to it. Hanna-Barbera's World of Super, and this is kind of the one I remember growing up. This is when they kind of it was a syndicated rerun package series that basically brought together a lot of the 60s Hanna-Barbera hero cartoons. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, Fantastic Four, Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossibles, Herculoids, Moby Dick and Mike Mightor, Shazam, Space Ghost, and Dino Boy. So then you had the Flintstones. So by this point, they were just trying to jam stuff together to put on TV. Some of it was in syndication, and then NBC would air the Flintstones comedy show, which was of course a spin-off of a number of the different Flintstones. I mean, in this one, you had the Flintstone Family Adventures, Bedrock Cops, Pebbles, Dino and Bam Bam, Captain Caveman, Dino and Cave Mouse, and the Frankenstones. So, actually, this one was more of an original one then. And then, of course, they would adapt from Paramount Television. They'd adapt some of their properties from that, including the Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, as well as Laverne and Shirley. We'll see more. Then you had, of course, the Richie Rich Scooby-Doo show, another show that they put together more as an hour-long program. You had the newer version of the second version of the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, and the Richie Rich show.
These guys were as bad as comic books, trying to get the license to produce anything and everything as a cartoon and for comic books. Yeah, okay. Can we get the license to do these as comic book?
Well, I mean,
DC and Marvel back in
but
the day.
Rick, you know, I know we haven't seen it too much yet, but what I can tell you from from the times I've looked things up for my um, this day in each history segment, what I can tell you is this was a common practice going back and forth. You had when you go back to like when you get into more deeper into the 40s and 50s, you had a number of theatrical shorts that were coming out in the comics as well. You had Disney was doing a lot of stuff. You'd
Yeah,
see
I
a lot of
know.
Walter Lance stuff. You'd see a lot of Looney Tune stuff in the comics. I mean, it's kind of going back and forth. They were trying to get, comic book creators were trying to take advantage of the popularity of of you know of the theatrical shorts and animated shorts and you know cartoon creators were trying to take advantage of popularity of comics. You know,
Yeah, I'm just saying it's like it's ridiculous how much they put out of all this. I hate to put it this way, but it's like like I like the Fonz and I like Laverne and Shirley, but this is like okay, making cartoons of all this stuff. It's just that's just crap. It's like you're just trying to
oh, yeah,
feed
I
the
mean,
airways.
well, that's probably why you
Well,
don't.
I don't know. I don't
Part of the
know.
reason you don't see those shows on partly because of the licensing issue because these were based on these were obviously based
Yeah.
on real
Now
shows, but
I don't know whether these shows particular are crap. I'm just saying in general, you know, you put out so much stuff, just probably half of it's gonna end up being crap.
yeah, well,
You
I
know,
mean, yeah, and the thing is, you look there, Laverne and Shirley was the hundredth show that they produced. See right
yeah,
on the far left. Um, and then
you know,
Space. Uh, Go ahead, Rick.
it's just I look at this and just in some ways it's incredible. In some ways, I would have thought they would have hit 100 a lot sooner with the way everything was going
No,
down.
they had. They had. I mean, and we're just talking about the TV series. We're
Yeah,
not even necessarily talking about like the movies, you know. And we're
yeah,
stopping more. We're focusing more on Hanna Barbera here. We're not even going into like Cartoon Network Studios and Warner Brothers, which took over a lot of these studios back there in the early '90s. You know, um, so we're just focusing again on Hanna Barbera up through the point of up to the late '80s, most likely. You had Space Stars here, which had newer episodes of Space Ghost and Herculoids with Space Stars finale and Teen Force, Quickie Koala Show, which was aired on this one. So the Quickie Koala Show was Tex Avery, according to this, was Tex Avery's final animated project before his death. Tex Avery, of course, known for his work on the Tom and Jerry cartoons back in the 40s and 50s. Of course, Quickie Koala, another kind of pattern, Quickie Koala, the Mungle Brothers, Crazy Claus, Dirty Dog, Trollkins, the Smurfs, Johann and Pee Wee. That one won an now. That was one of the longer running series of the 80s. There, that one ran for 8 years. But the thing was, it initially started on NBC and then moved to syndication.
yeah.
By the time the end of the '80s came about, it was more on. Well, actually, no. I think even in '89 it was still. But you notice they did, they for the first 7 seasons, and then there was a. Now the Smurfs were based on a comic book of the same name, which was
Yeah.
which was developed, I believe, think it was developed.
Germany or
No,
Switzerland
no, it
or
wasn't Germany. I think it was either Denmark or
Switzerland.
Sweden. I think it was like
Yeah,
it was one of the. I think it was one of the Scandinavian countries.
yeah,
Um,
and there was. I'm not sure whether it was before this or not. That before the seasons, there was a movie, The Smurfs and the Magic Flute,
yeah, I see.
which I'm not sure whether Hanna-Barbera did or not.
Yeah, the Smurfs based on Pierre Payot Colliford.
Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium. Yeah, that's. I knew it was. I knew it was a European country.
Yeah, so did I. I was just throwing out a few different ones.
Yeah, I actually. It might have been Belgium. Let's
Well,
see.
it says Belgium there when he was traveling through Belgium in the first paragraph in history.
Uh,
If you go down just a touch,
oh yeah.
when our whatever American
Oh
media
yeah.
entertainment
Belgium.
entrepreneur.
Yeah. All right. And the Smurfs. I mean, the Smurfs still running it. I know that that MeTV Tunes has it on. I mean, it's still pretty popular even to this day. I need
Yeah,
a
well,
little
they've got a new version too.
gnome running around, and this is another Emmy nominated or Emmy award winning cartoon. Um, it's kind of a fun one to watch. And then yeah, the Flintstone Funnies, which is a repackaged half-hour version of the Flintstones comedy show, obviously a spin-off of the Flintstones. And then you have, of course, the Pac-Man, Little Rascals, and Richie Rich show. Of course, bringing those three licenses together. You have Namco bringing in Pac-Man based on the video game, of course. Richie Rich with the Harvey Entertainment Company, and then the Little Rascals with the King World Productions. Yeah, so and then you had Morgan Mindy. That was the other one that had there. Of course, Ruby Spears. Yeah, yeah. You had Morgan Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonsauer, Morgan Mindy, and Laverne and Shirley with the spinoff of the Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, and Laverne and Shirley in the Army. Animated adaptation of Mork and Mindy. Written and voiced at Others Animation, produced by Ruby Spears. So the Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo Puppy Hour, which is co-produced with Ruby Spears. They had, of course, Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, Scrappy and Yabba-Doo, and the Puppy's New Adventures. Of course, a spin-off of the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show. The puppy character is based on Ruby Spears' animated adaptation of The Puppy Who Wanted to Be a Boy, which in turn is based on a book by Jane Thayer. The Hanna-Barbera co-produced The Puppy's New Adventures with Ruby Spears in 1980. These segments were later aired in 1983 as The Puppy's Further Adventures, made solely by Ruby Spears and without Hanna-Barbera. Joke Book, which didn't last too long, only 7 episodes. Compilation show mostly made up of non-HB material, such as classic cartoon. Final Hanna-Barbera TV series produced to use a laugh track. Shown on NBC. Shirt Tales, based on characters.
Shirt tails.
Based on characters created by Janet Manco for Hallmark greeting cards. The Gary Coleman Show, based on the 1982 TV movie The Kid with the Broken Halo, which starred Coleman. The Dukes, another animated adaptation of a previous property.
Yeah, previous property, the Dukes of Hazzard, and I think that was only created because of John Snyder and Tom Wopat going on strike.
What was that?
I said I think that property was only created because of Tom Wopat and John Snyder going on strike. I think that was the only reason that was produced.
I didn't even hear about that, but
What, that they went on strike? They went on
well, I
strike
knew
during
they'd
the.
gone on strike because they brought in Coy and Vance to replace Bo and Luke. I do know about that. I knew they went on strike. I just didn't know that the cartoon was created because they went on strike.
Well, I'm guessing that. I'm not. I'm not saying that's official or anything, but it was created right around that time, so that's what makes me think.
1983. Well, let's.
I'm not sure whether it'll say that anywhere in it.
Well, let's see. Well, the first season did feature Coy and Vance. And of course, I think the guys who were voicing the characters in the show also voiced them in the cartoon here. And then Bo and Luke were brought back in the second season. So, yeah. So let's see. Did they do say anything about it? I don't see anything here. 20 episodes were produced.
Yeah, this just says the plot of it. It might say after
Actually,
referring.
actually, actually, I think it right here. The first season took place during the period of the live action series temporary replacement of the original actors with similar characters, Coy and Vance Duke, after Tom Wopat and John Snyder walked out over a dispute about royalties from related merchandise. Thus, the first season of the animated series featured Coy and Vance. Bo and Luke eventually replaced Coy and Vance in season 2, episode 1, Bosso Hog and the Little People, after Tom and John simultaneously returned to the live action following the end of the dispute. This episode also featured a new introduction and voiceover that reflected the change in characters. Um, yeah, but it doesn't say if the series was made because of it or not. Just simply notes here that
It
you
was
know
created at the time
at
of,
that time.
which you can speculate based on that, and that's again what my speculation is based on because it was created just at the same time.
Yeah, but I don't know if that would have been in spite of or maybe they were planning it and they just went ahead with it, even though the two popular actors went on. So then you had the Monchi Cheese, Little Rascals, Richie Rich show with animated adaptation of the Monchi Cheese, and then the Pac-Man, Rubik's Cube, Rubik's the Amazing Cube. Again, another property and an animated adaptation of Rubik's Cube. Of course, at the time, if you remember, the Rubik's Cube was a
It was a
popular
popular.
cube game.
I
But
know.
to try to match all the colors on
Yeah,
each face.
yeah. I had it at that time. I've bought it a couple times since.
Yeah, but look
It's
at all the different types of stuff they would try to make cartoons out of.
yeah.
That is somewhat of a fascinating thing right there. You know,
And then video games, you're gonna see. Well, you got Pac-Man here. You're gonna. I'm not sure whether it was them, but uh, you'll see. Donkey Kong, Mario Brothers.
yeah. No, I think those might have been a
Hubert.
different. I think those might have been different companies, but yeah, those were actually different companies, I believe. But um, not Hanna-Barbera. Then you had the new Scooby Doo and Scrappy um, show, which had, of course, the new Scooby Doo Mysteries on it. Aired as the new Scooby Doo Mysteries in 84, 85. This is, of course, a spin off of Scooby Doo. Where are you? This basically had the whole gang, including Scrappy Doo in it. Biscuits, another, and then Lucky. So some of these are not as obviously well known.
The Snorks
Snort,
ripoff. The
yeah,
ripoff Smurfs underwater.
yeah. In a way, well, apparently they were also, according to this, they were also based on a. But yeah, I get your point though, because they had a very similar idea, just underwater. Scary Scooby Funnies, which is a repackaged reruns of the Richie Rich Scooby-Doo show in 84, 85. Challenge of the GoBots.
And of
Anime
course, the
adaptation of
ripoff of the Transformers.
Hasbro had the Transformers. The GoBots were from Tonka, and they were in
Yeah,
syndication. And
yeah,
you can actually catch Challenge of the Robots on MeTV Tunes on early Sunday morning. I believe it. I think it's like I think it might be 1 a.m. Eastern, maybe 10 Pacific. I'd have to double check that though, or 1 Pacific for Eastern, something like that. Uh, Pink Panther and Sons, basically co-produced with Merch Jeffrey. A spin-off of the Pink Panther theatrical cartoons aired on NBC. Super Friends, the legendary superpowers team. So this was the latest in the Super Friends spin-offs. This was the one where they introduced Firestorm, the nuclear man, who had actually become a popular character. His comic, if I recall, was started sometime in the late 70s there. And,
yeah, possibly. I'm not sure exactly when it started. When
and
it
then
was introduced.
a set of cartoons that would eventually become part of the fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera, which had the Pawpaws, Pawpaw Bears, Pawpaw Bear, Yogi's Treasure Hunt, which is a crossover of all the previous Hanna-Barbera properties, and Galtar and the Golden Lance. These of course, even though they aired individually in 85, 86, they were brought back as part of the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera cartoon show. And then you had in 85, you had the next Super Friends, the next and basically the last Super Friends adaptation, the Superpowers Team Galactic Guardians. This is the one where they introduced Cyborg as part of the team. You had Cyborg and Firestorm as like the two team characters. The third team goes to Scooby Doo, which was a another Scooby Doo spinoff.
With Vincent Price.
Right, with Vincent Price.
I remember that one. I liked it.
Flim Flam.
Yeah.
Scooby's Mystery Funhouse is a repackaged reruns of the Richie Rich Scooby Doo show, Scooby Doo, Scrappy Doo. So they were even pulling back, trying to bring stuff back to help ratings, I guess. They did a co-production with Southern Star, the Berenstain Bears, for CBS.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that.
CBS Story Break with Southern Star and CBS Productions. As I said, the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, the live-action animated syndicated programming block of superstar lineup of both old and new Hanna-Barbera cartoons. That ran from 85 to 94. They actually did Teen Wolf.
Which wasn't too bad of a series, and
Based on the movie, of course, based on the live action movie.
Yeah, well, based on the movie, but not based on the movie, because the movie was a lot more risque, a lot more teenager based. The cartoon was.
Well, again, this is still the 1980s, so they couldn't do. If they were going to make a cartoon out of it, they couldn't be risque, Rick.
Right? Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so the New Adventures of Johnny Quest, of course, a spinoff of Johnny Quest, aired in syndication. Pound Puppies, which became a staple in the late 80s for ABC. You had the Flintstone Kids, which was another, which was a spinoff of the Flintstones and Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels. As of course the Flintstones as kids, the adults also had Flintstone Funnies, Dino's Dilemmas, and Captain Caveman and Son. So Foofer for NBC, Wildfire, which was, I believe, an animated series about a horse. Co-produced with Wayne Film Productions and Cuckoo's Nest Studios. Sky Commanders, in syndication, co-produced with Toei Animation, based on the the Kenner toy line. Popeye and Son, another spin-off of the Popeye theatrical cartoons. This was the one where Popeye and Olive and Bluto had, Popeye and Bluto were married now. Popeye and Olive were married. Bluto was married to his wife, and I believe it was to a lady that was previously seen only a couple times previous shorts. This is the one where, even though Popeye's son would get the same super strength that Popeye would when he'd eat the spinach, he got, yeah! when he'd have to eat it. Skedaddle, which is a live action game show, aired as part of, which, fun to, so, yeah, a pup named Scooby-Doo.
I remember watching that series.
The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, based on Martin Short's Ed Grimley character. The New Yogi Bear Show, aired in syndication with 45 episodes. Fantastic Max, Booker PLC, Tanaka Production Company, Season 2. Fantastic Max was kind of an interesting one. You had Baby Max, who everybody, his sister was the only one who had some idea that he might be more than just a little baby, right? He'd have his toy block robot and a little toy doll that, if it twisted it, that could do tricks and transform things by twisting its little antenna around, right, and go rock and roll, and all of a sudden he'd turn Max's high chair into like a space rocket, and of course the other two characters were anthropomorphic, obviously. The Further Adventures of Super Ted, which is aired in Fantastic Max was syndicated as well.
I think I liked that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think I watched that series. I liked it.
What, the Super Ted?
Yeah.
Let's see. And I know we're getting pretty close to the 2-hour mark. I'm trying to hurry up as much as I can. I know.
We're into the 90s now. Finally.
Yeah. Which things started to scale back a little bit here. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Season 1 only. Animated, of course, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. And then you started seeing more syndicated stuff coming out as things were kind of starting to cool off on the Saturday morning side of things. Even, The Adventures of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. That's syndicated based on the Don Quixote. The Tom and Jerry Kids Show, which Fox started picking up more Hanna-Barbera stuff. Of course, Tom and Jerry, Droopy and Dripple, Spike and Tyke, Blast Off Buzzard, Urfel and Bud, basically, again, 65 episodes, so spin-offs of the Tom and Jerry and Droopy theatrical cartoons. You had obviously some of the older characters as well as some of the newer characters here. Tom and Jerry more as kids, though, in this one. Then Wake, Rattle, and Roll, which was syndicated. Even I never really watched this. I never saw this.
Never even heard of it.
Well, I've heard of it, but fourth and final Hanna-Barbera's live-action animated TV. So this is the fourth and final live-action animated combination. The Basement Tech segment is only in live action. Fender Bender 500 segment is a revival of Wacky Races, as well as a crossover series featuring characters from Huckleberry Hound, and all those. Gravedale High, which was the series starring Rick Moranis, on to basically just think of Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, but instead of Scooby and Shaggy, it's Rick Moranis. Also in syndication here, Midnight Patrol and the Adventures in the Dream Zone, The Pirates of Dark Water.
That's one that I wanted to watch, but I never got to watch all of them. I watched a few episodes. It looked interesting.
Yeah, it lasted for a couple of years. Yo Yogi, which again another kind of a crossover series. Basically, Yo Yogi was basically with the Hanna-Barbera, with a lot of the Yogi and a lot of his crew, all as teenagers in this one. you know, um, all the different properties. Young Robin Hood, that's the one you kind of referred to.
Yeah.
That was syndication, and it was
Well,
co-produced.
actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't refer to that one, but that was probably pretty good. I think I watched it. What I referred to was Rocket Robin Hood.
Oh, okay. Rocket Robin, my mistake.
No problem. No problem.
Fish Police, that was a primetime series on CBS, and then they had a comic series of the same name. Capital Critters, final primetime series from Hanna-Barbera. Capital Critters. I believe Capital Critters is basically, I think it was like an animated comedy in the vein of, you know, anthropomorphic characters satirizing um, the political figures of the day. The second adaptation of Addams Family after the 19th, this is the newer one that aired on Saturday mornings. Droopy Master. Of course, you had Droopy, Screwball Squirrel, Wild Mouse, and Lightning. The New Adventures of Captain Planet. So the fourth through sixth seasons of which were now had been previously been produced by Deke Entertainment, Captain Planet and the Planeteers, but Hanna-Barbera took over in '93 there, and they continue to air. And this is starting to get to the point where you were starting to see more original cartoons starting to be produced for like TBS and Cartoon Network. You had like Two Stupid Dogs here with Two Stupid Dogs and Super Secret Squirrel, which is a reboot of the Secret Squirrel show. SWAT Cats and the Radical Squadron. You know,
Moxie Show. What a cartoon.
first Hanna-Barbera produced show to air as a Cartoon Network original show on Cartoon Network. What a Cartoon, which we all, which I'm sure is Dumb and Dumber, which is an animated adaptation of the movie. Final Hanna-Barbera produced show to air on broadcast television, ABC. At this point, a lot of the stuff was moving over to cable by this point.
Yeah.
Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, a spinoff of only Johnny Quest related TV show to be broadcast on Cartoon Network. Cave Kids, which is another spinoff of this, the final Hanna-Barbera produced show to air in syndication. So that's pretty much up through '96, and then at that point, Hanna-Barbera as a division of Hanna-Barbera for the Cartoon Network studios. So before coming to an end, they had developed 170 shows. That's quite a bit of history there, huh?
For sure.
Yeah. And the good thing I didn't go into too much detail note-wise on every single show, or be here for quite some time more.
Yeah, we'd be here till next year this time.
Yeah. But with that, we still got quite a bit of good content out of that, I'd say, in terms of just looking back at everything that was kind of and that was just the shows. We didn't even get into like the movies. We know that there were a number of of course, one of my probably my all-time favorite Christmas movie, Yogi's First Christmas. I've told you that several times. But there was a number of things. But with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the show here. So we're now going to, of course, now as we're getting to the 2-hour mark here, we are going to start wrapping things up by taking a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So let me just take a quick peek. 5. And 2019. All right. So with today being Sunday, Sunday, September 1st, 2024. Let's take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history. History! So first off, I'm going to head back to yesterday. Is going back to, I believe correctly. Yep. Going back to 2005, which was 19 years ago yesterday. On yesterday's date, 19 years ago, the 225th issue of Volume 2 of Flash went on sale on yesterday's date back in 2005. Of course, that was a series that started in 1987, after years after Flash Comics ceased, or after that ceased due to. So the story was Rogue War conclusion. So with Flash being the feature, Wally West being the featured character. Jeff Johns was the writer. Howard Porter was the penciler. Inked by John Liversley. Rob Lee did the lettering, and the coloring was done by James Sinclair. So, 19 years ago yesterday was the 225th issue of Volume 2 of Flash from DC Comics.
Cool, I guess.
Now, moving ahead to 5 years ago, 2019. Unfortunately, this is more in regards to a passing. On this date 5 years ago today, voice actor Michael Lindsay, who is best known for his voice work as Kisuke Urahara in Bleach and Kankuro in Naruto in the early days before his passing, as well as Amuro Ray in the first 3 Mobile Suit Gundam compilation films, passed away at the age of 56 from an unknown illness. Well, unknown to everybody. His cause of death was never revealed. But let's see. He retired from voice acting, and many of his roles were taken over by Doug Erholtz. On this date 5 years ago today, Michael Lindsay passed away at the age of 56. So, and I believe part of the reason they said that he ended up having to retire was because of some health issues he was dealing with at the time and needed to be in a climate that was more suitable to his health. Now, moving ahead to today. Today, 19. All right. So first up, I'm going to head back 90 years ago today. And on this date, 90 years ago today, back in 1934, Walt Disney's Peculiar Penguins and Charles Mint Studios' The Trapeze Artist both released in theaters both were released in theaters on this date back in 1934. Now there is another thing there too, but I discovered it wasn't on the first; it was more like on the 15th. So on this date, 90 years ago, Walt Disney's A Peculiar Penguin and Charles Mint Studios for Columbia, The Trapeze Artist, both were released into movie theaters on this date 90 years ago. And oops, wrong thing, Mike. Wrong thing. And finally, moving ahead to 2009. On this date in 2009, as soon as I grab that, at the SmackDown taping for the 4th on this date back in 2009, which was 15 years ago today, WWE, of course, had its SmackDown taping from the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. The main event on a non-title match, CM Punk Matt Hardy defeats CM Punk via DQ. You also had in a match for the Intercontinental title, John Morrison defeated Rey Mysterio to become the new Intercontinental Champion. And Finlay and the Great Khali defeated Kane and Mike Knox in the opening match. So on this date in 2009, 15 years ago today, the WWE held its SmackDown taping at the Quicken Loans Arena in um, Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. So with that, I thank everyone for being here tonight. Before we go, of course, Rick, would you like to give any kind of outro before we head out?
I'll just put a link again in the chat for the Silhouette Game, episode 1. It's all by itself. It's not in the middle of episode from Tuesday, so people can just go watch it, and that's it. They don't have to watch, try and figure out where in the chill stream it is if they want to watch it. So hopefully they will like it, and maybe come play on Tuesday. Hopefully that will be on time. But my first day of work is on Tuesday, so I'm not sure what time I'm getting off of work. So I'm not sure whether they'll be able to start at 10 sharp or not.
Yeah. Well, I will send you the link tomorrow morning for
that's no problem. I'm not working tomorrow. I'm not working this Wednesday, so I will be able to be on both days, no problem.
All right. So with that, everybody, I thank you all for being here. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow night with some news. Of course, here in the States, it will be Labor Day. So
same here in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll be wishing everybody a happy Labor Day. Also, this Friday, of course, I'll have Shadowhawk joining me as we'll be looking back to March of 1940. Looking at books that went on sale at that time from Holyoke. We'll be introducing you guys to the world of Holyoke periodicals with Crash Comics Adventures #1. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.